Great. So welcome everybody. I'm Sherry Shee from the Lawrence Hall of Science here at UC Berkeley. We're the Public Science Center of Berkeley, and today we are going to do a recap of some wonderful presentations that were presented at the Association for Science Technology Centers Conference. And the topic we're going to address today are stories from different learning labs that are all addressing issues of equity and cultural relevance. And we're going to hear from a number of great presenters. And one of the reasons why I felt this was an important topic to do is that as we design different learning environments, it's important to think about how we can be inclusive to the range of different audiences and participants that we're trying to serve with teen audiences, and also look at designing environments using a lens of equity as well as diversity. And so with support from the Institute for Museum Library Services and the MacArthur Foundation Learning Labs programs, as many of you knew, we are doing, we have a number of institutions that are creating youth spaces, and oftentimes the different activities are designed in particular ways that invite participation. And there's also been some discourse where some of you might be familiar with this, is that there's a little bit of a backlash with the maker movement. There was a report that recently came out that Intel produced called Make Her, to try to emphasize that the maker movement is trying to be inclusive and to invite a diversity of ways of participating. And so I'm hoping that what we'll learn in this particular presentation is to hear specifically from different learning labs to find out what are they doing within each of our spaces, what kind of facilitation and training is being provided, and how do we look at our own practices to recruit for diversity, to design spaces for inclusion, to support different social emotional ways of learning, and also trying to create a more student-centered ways of doing work. And this could be from designing spaces all the way down to the kinds of practices that we do every day working with teens. So I want to introduce each of the speakers, and maybe we can have each of the speakers introduce themselves.
So a few things about the YOUmedia network. It's I think many of the people listening to this are probably network members, so hello. But for those of you who are not so familiar with the network, it is an organization of roughly 30 libraries, museums, and community centers that received this IMLS MacArthur grant beginning in 2011, and whose goal is really to rethink informal learning environments and how we can build informal learning environments to really support connected learning and to help define learning pathways for youth as they're navigating through connecting what they're interested in to their school, to maybe future potential career or academic goals. So the reason why I was particularly interested in getting this group of folks together is that we all go to these conferences, and when you go to a conference you make these presentations, and they're amazing presentations, and more often than not they get kind of lost after the conference is done. So the goal of doing this is, it's I guess the first in a series following up conferences to make sure that we have an archive of all of the great things that we're talking about, and to also use these as a way to initiate conversation going forward and kind of continue the conversation after the conference is done. So I guess what we'll do is we'll begin with Amy from ARTLAB, and I'm going to do a slide share of your, okay, can you guys see this?
Great, thanks K5.
Okay, wonderful.
So my name is Amy Homa, and I'm the manager of digital learning programs here at the Hirshhorn Museum. And we are one of the oldest learning labs to be around. We're in our 4th academic calendar year. And over the course of 4 years, we have really refined our practice as what it means to offer an educational space to local DCUs that deals with digital media and technology in accessible ways, in inviting ways, in hands-on participatory ways, and so we've come up with a lot of good approaches and successful approaches with that. So just to kind of give an overview of our program, like I said, we've been around for over 4 years, and we are open 11 months out of the year for 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. So we're running programs a lot. We're an after-school program. And during this time, you can see here that this is what the ARTLAB looks like in one of its finest moments. Learning is happening simultaneously. We have a very small space. Our maximum capacity is only 35 teens at one time, which isn't a tremendous amount of teens, and 35 teens in the space feels really heavy and really crowded, and sometimes it's hard for learning to actually deep engagement and deep learning to take place is hard to happen when there's so many teens in the space, but this was a moment when it was working. And I really want to be clear that for all of these practices that we put forward with ARTLAB, a lot of times they work and sometimes they don't, but that doesn't mean that they're not successful, because we just look for them to be successful more often than not. So as you can see in this photograph, we have a lot of different teens, a lot of different age ranges, and a lot of different types of learning happening, which is how we really define inclusivity. And so in the foreground of the photograph, we have a young man working, he's looking at a TV screen, he's working off a Wacom digital drawing tablet, he's doing some digital illustration. At the table behind him, that big brown blob on the table is a papercraft dinosaur, a T-Rex dinosaur, that ended up being 9 feet long from the tip of the dinosaur's nose to the tail. And Akila, one of our ARTLAB teens who's been coming to the program for over a year, started her interest in 3D design through papercraft, and she was able to rope in a lot of her peers to help her complete this project because it was on such a large scale. So you can see there's a cluster of teens working on that. In the background on the right-hand side of the photograph, you'll see one of our mentors, Cody. He's wearing a blue sweater, and he is helping some other teens get started with different types of papercraft projects. Because what ends up happening is new teens, or maybe unfamiliar teens to our space and to all of the diversity of programs that we offer, come in and they immediately start picking up what their peers are doing. So they saw that their peers were working on a papercraft project, so Cody intervened and thought this would be a great opportunity to get them started on a papercraft project. On the background in the left-hand side, you'll see the green screen is up, and you'll also see the DJ equipment is up. So there's clusters of teens working on a photography project there, and a cluster of teens working on DJ mixtapes. And then in the very far back on the IMAX up against the wall that has ARTLAB written across it in a mural, teens are working, I think there's one teen working in iMovie, and then there's another teen working in Photoshop. So all of this learning in an ideal ARTLAB setting is happening simultaneously. Peer-to-peer mentoring is encouraged. Teens are taking on leadership roles. Teens are teaching other teens. Teens are teaching mentors. Mentors are teaching teens. And it really is an environment of learning more so than anything else. And that's really what we strive for with ARTLAB. So if we go to the next slide, I can just quickly go over our schedule.
Okay.
So every day of the week, we have Open Studio from 3 to 5 and Artist Studio from 5 to 7. And what we did is we took the pedagogical approach Hamago and we chunked it out based on timing, based on our schedule. Because when we first started off, we were going to Harold Washington Public Library in Chicago for inspiration, because they had been doing this for a year already, and they had, had a lot of success with their teens. And we saw that they had originally delineated their space using the Hamago pedagogy in a physical manner, that 1/3 of their space was intended for hanging out teens, another third of their space was intended for messing around, and then the final third was intended for geeking out. So we knew that we never would be able to do that with our limited, tiny space, so we had to think of other ways to encourage all different tiers of learning, all different tiers of engagement to happen at the same time, overlapping with one another. And how do you do that? Because that sounded really challenging. So what we started off as a pilot, and what ended up being really successful, is the schedule you see here. So Open Studio is defined as a time where teens can just come into our space after school. They can de-stress, they can relax, they can go on Facebook or social media, they can play video games, they can start a project if they want. They have the most amount of freedom that they ever will have within the ARTLAB space. Mentors are here during the Open Studio time to just informally talk and get to know teens. It's very social. It's very much based on play. A lot of teens are playing board games now during this time, or like computer games during this time. And it's a great time for just all of us to kind of get to know one another and build community. From 5 to 7 every day, we segue into a production time or a creative time. And production to us can also mean just exploration. It doesn't have to mean that you're creating a product. It can mean that you're just tinkering or you're just exploring what the making process looks like. So every day of the week we have a different medium for the topic of our workshop. And the way the mentors construct these workshops is that each workshop allows for a drop-in audience by creating 3 tiers of participation. So every single workshop that we offer has a hanging out element, a messing around element, and a geeked out element. And in doing this, teens can come in at any point to our program, no matter if they've been here before or if they've been here for a year, and there's a way for them to participate that's engaging. We realized that we couldn't scaffold our workshops in a traditional format, where one week led to the next week, led to the next week, because the teen audience in a drop-in setting is not going to come every single week, and we can't rely on their attendance to be that consistent. So we needed to make sure that we were engaging the widest breadth of a teen population as possible, and so we made that format. And for us, that is really successful, and if for us, an unforeseen circumstance that's come from that is that it encourages peer-to-peer mentoring. So teens that are really geeked out on photography kind of end up taking leadership roles during those photography workshops and help newer kids or novice or amateur kids get started on a photography project. So it also helps to create this community of learning in our space. So if we go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So you guys can see just the topics that we deal with. Our sessions change every 7 weeks, which is really frequent, and mentors are constantly writing curriculum. And the reason why we change every 7 weeks is because we want to keep things as relevant and as connected to teens' interests as possible. So we are keeping up with them, because as soon as we start falling behind with our program materials or our program content, we start losing teens, because we know that they have to be interested in what we're offering for them to be coming to our doors every day. So right now we have the selection that you see in front of you, anything from character building to podcasting to preservation types of photography, and in 7 weeks, or well, now we're midway through the 7 weeks, so in a couple more weeks this will change out and we will have different topics for curriculum. We've heard from teens that this keeps things really fresh, and it keeps things really inviting, and it keeps the teens on their toes, because things are changing in the art lab and things always seem new and always seem different, and they like that. So that is something that ensures that we maintain our cultural relevancy with our audience. And if we go to the next slide, all of our learning opportunities are connected to professional industry standards. We wanted to make sure that our teens knew that when they were coming to participate in our programs, that the skills that they were building by participating in our programs led to something greater, led to something outside of our program, beyond the walls of the art lab. And so what we developed was a certification program. And I'm not sure if you guys can see the certification, but I'm just going to keep talking about them. So for every technology and software that we have in the space, there's a certification tied to it. These are all based on teens' interest. We don't teach these as if the same way a teacher would teach to a test. We don't start any of our workshops by saying, hey, everyone, you're going to get DSLR certified today in today's workshops. We have just a wall in our space where all of our certifications are up on a bulletin board. Teens learn about them organically through their peers or through conversations with mentors, and where it comes up when it's relevant. This is never something that we say immediately to a teen who has no idea on how they want to engage with digital media, because we know that that might be intimidating. This is something that just teens learn about throughout their experience in our space. And so once they're certified within a technology or a software, we then have conversations with those teens as to how they can use that language on a college application or a job application or a resume. And we encourage them to start making the connections between what they're learning here and how that is relevant into their own lives, into their own careers, into their own, professional higher education careers beyond the art lab. All of our certifications are diagnostic based, meaning that teens have to show they have a working knowledge of these key concepts rather than answering questions about them. So we have some preliminary questions that kind of give the mentors a sense as to where their skill level is at. If a teen can't even answer the preliminary questions, we know that the teen's not ready to take the certification. And then the second page of the certification, which we don't show here, encourages the teens to take a series of photographs that shows not only that they have a working knowledge of the camera and the anatomy of the camera, but also photography principles as well. And so it's also building in this idea that teens need to be able to show a portfolio of work to defend their artist statement and to defend themselves with their skills. So that's also been very successful for us for being inclusive of all teens' skill levels, because we have these across the board for different mediums, but also encouraging them to level up. And so our next slide, a big question I get a lot of times is to how we find mentors or how we train mentors to work in this space, and that can be very tricky. And what we found works the best is we need as diverse of a staff as we have with our teens. And when I say diverse, I mean that in a lot of different ways. I mean diverse in experience, diverse in skill level. It's not the best fit for ARTLAB space to have every single person be at their maximum level capacity in terms of professionalism within that field, because I also want some people who are learning alongside the teens, because that models to teens lifelong learning skills. Again, this idea that this is a community of learning that's happening, that we're not sages on the stage, that we're not all here with every single answer that they are going to need in life or in general to learn skills, that we're going to be learning alongside with them. So the whole team of mentors has a really wide variety of skill sets and interests, and I found that that works best in working with the wide range of teens that we deal with. So anything from a performing artist in DC to someone who's more interested in the education side, or someone who's really interested in the fine art, to someone who builds his own 3D printers. It's really about having an individual come in who offers a unique skill set that we don't already have as part of our team. And when I say skill set, I mean that goes above and beyond just the digital media skills. I want to see that someone is really interested in spoken word poetry and can get teens to think critically about the lyrics that they're writing. Or I want to see that someone takes apart toasters and can put them back together, because we can do robotics programs, or we can start taking apart our equipment when it breaks and having the teens learn how to fix it. So it's really about just finding the right fit. In the past, we've even had an individual volunteer with us who was studying intellectual and copyright law, and that was amazing to have in the space, because teens are jacking songs off the internet all the time and trying to put them on their own mixtapes. She brought this knowledge to our team as to, hey, these are the consequences for doing this, and none of us could speak to that because we're not familiar with those laws the way she was. So that's a big part of what we do as well. And then I think there was one other slide, but I can't see it, and I don't know if the slides are moving forward. But I'm going to stop there because I feel like I've been talking for quite a while.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. Awesome. So I guess, Sherry, do you want to speak with your slides?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So do you want me to share my desktop?
Yeah, let's try doing that.
Okay. You bear with me for just a moment. It's been an interesting morning with fun technology things.
So I should also mention that for anyone who might be watching this live, if you're on the YouTube page, there's a bar at the top of the YouTube video that says Q&A, or go to the live Q&A, and you can click on that and you can submit questions and we'll get them in the Q&A box. One thing I wanted to mention after Amy's talk is, well, first of all, you guys are doing really, really amazing stuff at ARTLAB. It's so impressive and so inspiring. And I guess what I love about it is, well, I like many things, but there just seems to be so many multiple entry points to youth engagement, and I think that that is a really big, important part of having these spaces and designing these spaces. So it's not like you walk into a space, and from where I'm coming from the library side, it seems to be like, you know, Tuesday is going to be like anime afternoon, and Wednesday is going to be this thing. It seems like if you have these multiple projects that are going on, many of them which are teen-led, that enables someone to walk in and engage in a variety of different things, and it makes it so it's not like school, and it's truly interest-based. So I love the idea of like clusters.
Exactly. And that's what we're going for, and that's what we've heard from teens, that they want to feel, and we know this, that they want to feel like they're in charge of their own learning, that they have the power and the opportunity to have their voices heard, to have their thoughts appreciated, to have their skills acquired at their own pace. And that's why we've created these, I call them invisible structures, because we're not, overt with them to the teens, even though the mentors are working like crazy behind the scenes to make sure it all goes smoothly. These invisible structures that allow these clusters of learning, that allow these different tiers of learning to happen at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. Sherry, do you want to jump on with your presentation?
Sure. Are you guys able to see everything?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Oops. All right, well, super. So what I'm going to talk about are the different equity and diversity practices and programs at the Lawrence Hall of Science. In particular, we're going to be looking at the Tech Hive Teen Internship Program. As I mentioned before, we are the Public Science Center of UC Berkeley, and we are here up on a hill. Here's a picture of the Science Center itself. We serve families and children around the Bay Area, as well as do professional development, and also, as I mentioned, host our Tech Hive space. So a little bit about the Tech Hive program. The Tech Hive is a pre-college engineering program that focuses on supporting creativity, youth development, authentic engineering design experiences for high school students ages 14 through 18. The Tech Hive was started with funding from the Institute for Museum Library Services and MacArthur program, and we're one of the learning labs. So this is a picture of the current cohort. We have 32 students in our current program. A number of kids were recruited from the Bay Area, and a lot of them were originally from our existing membership program. To give you an idea of our selection process is we tried to make sure that we had as many females as males in the program. We also wanted to make sure that we diversified across different high schools, so we have kids coming in from 19 different high schools. And also looked at just a range of different ethnicities and perspectives, bringing the kids into the program. This is the Tech Hive space. I'm actually here in it right now. This is an old amphitheater that was a computer lab here at the Lawrence Hall of Science, and with funding from a number of different sponsors, we were able to transform the space in an 18-month period, as well as do some planning around the lab. So to go over a little bit of our program goals, we had both a pedagogical agenda as well as an equity agenda that we really wanted to empower all learners to be able to creatively craft and design using technology, and around both their personal growth, their participation in science, and also ways that they could develop ideas in their own communities. We also wanted to try to democratize access to expertise. Being part of the university, we have a great access to a number of scientists, engineers, and staff members, and trying to get kids access to that. We also wanted kids to become fluent in being able to take an idea and own it, either inventing and doing things with technology to both learn for themselves, teach others, and work smarter, and of course supporting our model of connected learning. So, okay, so here we have the, here is a picture of the Tech Ive Studio. It is a Saturday-only program. The kids come in around 10 o'clock and they stay till about 4:30. As I mentioned, this is high school students. We do have particular drop-in events for the public, but while the kids are in there, it's really their space and it's closed to the public. And this is the activity framework which helps organize our work. We make different things. We share different things through making media and participating in panels, and we also teach things to others. And the audiences which we serve, we primarily started as a work experience program for the hall by having kids help out with exhibits and programs, camps and classes and things that go on in the hall with public programs. And then we started reaching out to do projects in the community by helping to develop these short tutorials, being at fairs and festivals, and also making sure that the kids had a chance to take what they learn and apply it to their own individual projects and their personal interests. Just to give you a quick idea of the kinds of things, we brought the kids to the East Bay Mini Maker Fair. It's a local event where there are different families that come and participate and make different things. We ran a special program with related to an exhibition called Extreme Bugs, and so the kids made a little a game which they programmed in Scratch and then used cardboard switches to interact with that game. So it gave them some ideas and experiences teaching to others. And as I mentioned, they also help out in public programs. Part of their sharing, because we think it's very important that kids have an experience creating media messages and creating their own media. We have a YouTube channel and encourage the teens to edit their own videos and have a venue for presenting that online. We also invited the kids to do a project at the Happy Hollow Zoo where they created an MP3 player that went with a zoo ride. We love the Makey Makey. These are a number of different Makey Makey projects that we've done. We made this giant Makey Makey that were analog switches to the actual device. We had kids use that to develop cardboard challenges, and they learned Scratch as well. We took that Makey Makey project and extended it to build an exhibit, an operation game. And then we shrank the operation game down to a little cardboard piece, making it a little bit more accessible. So, you know, almost anyone could take some aluminum foil and wires and cardboard and make their own games. Cardboard is another one of these tools and paper that just helps bring making and learning to everyone. We created a Ive Sign. This involves soldering, using LEDs, programming Arduino, and a lot of design work on the computer to draw out all the letters. And most recently, one of our Ive facilitators, AJ Almaguer, won a Bay Area Inspire Award, and he brought that award to the Hive and invited the teens to co-build at the Town of Terror, a haunted house, which was introduced at the Albany High School and involved the local community there, as well as a group called the Berkeley Engineers and Mentors, who were working with after-school kids. So just to say a little bit more about the Hive as a context for looking at equity, inclusion, and diversity, that just reflecting on what we've done in the last 18 months, that in order to invite participation by lots of different students, we had to change our approach to recruiting for gender equity and equality and diversity by specifically targeting different schools, counselors, teachers, and community partners. And that was a way to not get the usual suspects visiting science centers who were already familiar with the center and their families were already tied to the hall in some way, either through membership or they'd been coming here forever, and to try to broaden that participation. We also try to, and this is more of a design principle for inclusion, is to try to offer activities that allow learners to create their own pathways. And so if there is a way to create an activity that there's multiple ways of letting them be expressive and to create their own stories and use their own materials, that's right up along the lines of social constructivist learning, to throw out a term, but it's a really great way of inviting broader participation. Kind of on the nuts and bolts is that a lot of kids have trouble coming up to the hall. Transportation is a huge issue, and so if there's a way to offset the cost of transportation to the hall, or setting up carpools amongst your teens, that's a great practice. Something that we found very useful in this fall cohort, we have a number of families that were only speaking one language, and so being able to hire bilingual staff to translate to the parents what their kids were involved in and why they were part of the program was important. We also try to open up our space and offer it as a regional hub to different community partners to host different events. And because we are part of the University of California, Berkeley, that we try to guide equity and inclusion, since it's part of our part of the university policies. So with these particular design guidelines, that we also have a number of challenges, which are both geographical constraints. Being up on a hill, and it's hard for kids to come up here. As I mentioned, there were transportation issues. And also that the visitors and attendees who come to the Science Center and the teens also do tend to reflect the university profile and demographic, and so one has to take extra care to try to be inclusive and try to reach everyone. Especially back to this idea of diversity is that not all the kids are interested in STEM, and I think that's okay. And as long as we're providing ways of getting to funds of knowledge for that, I think that's great. We also have limited resources for staff PD, which is something that we would love to figure out a way to grow in that area. And we invited different corporate volunteers as well as alumni and retirees to come give talks. And as you know, you do have to train these folks because they can easily reinforce stereotypes, and especially which are, would be unhelpful to the kids. And if you want to learn more about the Tech Hive program, we have a Facebook page, we maintain a Tumblr blog, and we have a YouTube channel, and I'm looking forward to getting some questions and discussion.
Great, thank you, Sherry. It's so refreshing to hear someone actually acknowledging challenges and real challenges that their site is facing, because I feel like it's hard to do this, particularly when you have like different environments and you want to be always showing your best face. But one thing that I really like about the YOUmedia network is that it really opens up this opportunity to have a conversation and to problem solve collaboratively. I agree with you. I've heard from many sites that transportation is a huge issue, and it's something that you never really think about. But in trying to get as many youth as possible and as diverse a group as possible to your site, being able to get them there is usually one of the hardest parts. And in terms of some things that you're doing that are really fantastic that I love are just seeing how your teens have really taken ownership over the space in terms of like putting their own identity and their own imprint. So that's really cool. And the other thing too is like acknowledging that not having necessarily STEM programming, but saying that there are other kinds of learning that's happening, and that's fine, and it's maybe not something that that funders want to hear, that like non-STEM activities are happening, but acknowledging yourself that it's okay that these kids are just hanging out, it's okay that they're just socializing, and it's all about culture building and community building for the youth is, I think, really important to be able to do. So David, do you want to jump over to you and show your part of this presentation?
Yes, I would like to do that. Okay, I just want to start out by saying that there are a lot of different facets to our learning labs as well. but I focused my presentations kind of on strategies we use to develop potentially equitable programming, etc. And I added an audio track to the video, so I'm going to share that here. Okay. How about now? Can you guys see it?
That's good.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to play it.
Equity, like many people do, the word accessibility comes to mind. But what does accessibility mean? There are many dimensions to equity, and I'm going to focus on two of the facets that I find integral in developing equitable programs in my space. These are invitation and voice. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to use your creativity a bit here for a second. Imagine you're planning a dinner party. You've created the most amazing menu appealing to a wide cultural, diverse palette. You designed beautiful decor. Everything is all set. Or is it? Crucial aspect to your dinner party is the invitation. Without it, no one's going to know about it, and certainly nobody's going to show up. First, you'd think about who you want to invite, because the mix of people is crucial to the success of the experience. I feel the invitation provided dictates how accessible or equitable your program is. Queens is the most ethnically diverse area in the country. Because of this, we have the opportunity to invite an amazing mix of people to our dinner party. That provides a powerful platform. And as you may or may not know, with great power comes great responsibility. As a science center, it is difficult for us to retain our audience past middle school. Learning Labs has allowed us to create an inviting environment in which teens are trusted to make their own decisions, and they're able to follow their interests, etc. Now, there are two types of interests. Of course, there are the ones you have, but then there are the ones you're not sure about yet and you need to discover. In our space, we really try to provide an invitation for the teens to explore those interests, but also through collaboration, discussion, and sharing, they can discover a lot of new ones as well. One of the vehicles we use to do this is the Learning Labs pop-up. The event we're having today is called the Learning Labs Pop-Up.
I want to make sure everyone knows that everything is live in the moment right now, right here. That's right.
All right. So the other facet that I wanted to discuss is voice. It is essential for us to offer an avenue for the teens to express their ideas, to reflect on their experience, but also suggest ways to change it or make it better, depending on what their interests are. We use the Speak Up space to do this. We offer 3 prompts. What did you do or what did you make? What did you like? And what would you change?
Hi, my name is Jono. So, right now, talk to you guys, whoever you are.
Hi, I'm Georgia Gallant, and I'm part of the Digital Makers Club. My name is Spencer. What's your name? My name is Tanya. What's your name? Janelle. My name is Jana Artist. Mi nombre es Michelle. Mi nombre es Erika.
My name is Alvin. It's a combination of Alex and Aaron.
I'm Benjamin. I'm Santana Will.
Hola, my name is Mi nombre es Isa Quesada.
My name is Avery.
I performed today. Those words filled my spirit. The way I felt about the piece, I still love you to say with my poet name is Art Is. It was pretty cool.
Y lo que nos gustó de aquí fue que la gente te explica muy bien las cosas, tú lo entiendes todo. El trato fue muy bueno y estoy encantada de estar aquí.
And right now in the background, people are making beats, making music.
Just really technological people who, you're a good producer, you can use anything. But I just wish this museum or whatever this is was just a little bit longer.
All right, so I'm going to conclude with a quote from John Dewey, and I urge you to think about equity, create opportunities, and provide a platform for change within your programs and within your institution. Thanks.
All right. So, okay, that was my presentation, but then I'd also like to add on that as we're going forward with the program, it's just taking on many different versions because I think, what is that special word that I'm trying to think of? It's when you're trying to keep a program going. Can anybody help me out with this? Oh my gosh, my brain's, anyway.
Sustainability?
Yeah, there we go. Wow.
Oh, the S word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sustainability. Okay. So we've been, raising funds in various ways to continue and extend this. And right now, the inversion is very close to the idea of almost like an innovation lab where the kids are sharing their community experiences and their neighborhoods and issues or problems, or even just changes that they would like to make within that community. And how they go about making these changes, whether it be, creating an awareness video or, designing a new possible way to, entry point for some sort of technology or animation, etc. So that's something that we are in the process of right now. And that's it.
Cool. That Speak Up space is pretty awesome. That's the first I've heard of it. So that's really cool, David. And what I like about it is that it ensures that you get youth feedback, and it's in a lot of ways very different from, and almost, I'd say in some ways better than a survey, because we found that literacy has been a big obstacle. When it's different when you're asking a kid for their response towards something, and then you have them sit behind like a piece of paper or a computer and write out their response. It's almost like they need that help to be able to, or they feel like it's a less authentic experience if they're responding through a formal survey as opposed to when they're just having a conversation. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that I've noticed about that, one of the benefits is exactly what you're talking about, where the kids choose to go in, and that's why that's why I wanted to specify the word voice, because it's really important. The trust you build up with your teens or anyone in your programs, it's essential for you to develop that trust really before you can get even a lot of the learning wheels turning. And one of the challenges of that is that we don't, like surveys, a lot of times everyone's given a survey. Like this, they go in there on their own, accord, like they decide to go in there. So the challenge to that is that maybe sometimes nobody goes in, which actually with the teens never happens, but I had one teen volunteer to do it, and they just sat there in silence for 2 minutes and then left. I kind of liked that because it was very, that was also expressing something, but non-verbally. And yeah, so it's a really interesting, I think, medium, and it's still very much in the works. If anybody, I said there, this is a working title. If anybody has ideas of what it could be, called that make it a little more, I don't know, charming or whatever. But anyway.
Cool. So I guess if anybody has any questions, they can shoot that in the Q&A now. But while we're waiting for a question or two, I just wanted to also bring up another thing that I'm hearing from you all that I don't think we've quite said the word yet, but I'd just like to highlight that what's important about ensuring that youth are giving their feedback is to also ensure that they're being heard by someone. And so I just wanted to emphasize again why mentors are so important and why these trusting relationships that you build with teens on the front lines of your programming are very important, because it's acknowledging that they have a voice. It's that they're being heard.
K5, I wanted to share one practice that we use as a way of promoting reflection, and I love David's prompts. We'd love to borrow some of those. At the very end of our sessions on Saturday is we group the kids back up together because they're oftentimes working in pairs or groups or doing different things. And we have them do this innovation process where we, of course, want to celebrate the work that they did. And so we call these pluses, like in a blessing session. So you add, people say what they really liked about what happened, and then they also give their deltas. So rather than saying the pluses and the minuses, because it turns into this kvetching session, that it's easier to say, in what ways can you actually improve what we did? And so we turn them into designers. We turn them into, empower them to have a voice to actually say, it would have been better if, and then they can finish that sentence. And that seemed to work well for us. to do that either after an activity or even at the end of the semester or individually with kids.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about the prompts, because I have tried several different types of prompts throughout the years, and I found that the open-ended prompts, such as like what did you do or make, it allows for them to get in those conversations, or allows for them to really express that, as opposed to, I feel surveys sometimes are like, what did you like learn about some sort of content area or something. But this is more not just allowing a platform for their voice, but actually saying like your voice matters. And I think that is something that I feel when the prompts are more pointed, I don't get nearly as much information.
Mm-hmm.
I was also going to mention that recently I'm working on a paper mechatronics grant because we're trying to build paper robotic kits to bring the price point down for learning about mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and controls. And as one of my pre-assessments, I had given them this assessment about testing their kind of mechanical confidence and understanding about linkages. And just looking at their body language, the way they froze up, and it's very school, like all the kind of feelings about schooling and failure, like, am I going to be graded on this, or how well, like, I don't know this, like, all kind of came out of the woodwork. And so I feel like oftentimes surveys are also not what they call ecologically valid for the work that we do in these rich informal learning spaces.
Yeah. And just as a warning for the video booth concept or the speak up space is you get a lot of data, so you have to go through it, you have to edit it, you have to so it adds a lot more work than what a survey would do. But I also feel that work is a lot more fruitful, or it's a lot at least for us to get gauge what the kids are thinking. We're not even supplanting an idea in their head. We are saying, just tell us what you did, and kids like to talk about what they did.
Yeah, and that could also be a learning opportunity in itself to take to have them record their reflection, but then challenge them to edit it down to like a 1-minute clip, much like what was it called, the YOUmedia Minute from last summer's retreat, because then it also shows that they know how to edit video or edit audio and make it interesting and add other elements or add music or something like that.
I actually like that idea, and I'm certainly going to use it.
Yeah.
It'll make my job a lot easier.
So I think we could probably wrap this up in a few minutes, but one thing I wanted to let everyone know about is the community of practice that's going to be opening in January. For any of you who are a learning lab, you should probably have an account on it from the retreat over the summer in Philly. So it's an Aztec community of practice site, and it's a space that's kind of like a forum / place to upload documents, but it's really like an online community to be able to bring questions, bring resources. So, for example, Amy, any of your certifications, if you're comfortable posting any of those and letting people read them and share them. David, your prompts. Sherry, your protocol that you're talking about for the pluses and celebrating people's work. So I'll post a link to that on the archive, but also just right now, it's more of an internal thing. So I would encourage you three to post those resources, because I think they'd be not only great jumping off points for conversation, but great resources in themselves.
Definitely.
Cool. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to bring up? Any last minute thoughts?
Well, I just want to thank you, K5, for organizing us and encouraging us to do this.
Yeah, actually it was nice for me because I thought, at first that you were going to have control of the video, so I couldn't pause and play it, because in my presentation at Aztec, I just paused it every time I wanted to pause it. But it got me to really think and articulate more about what I was actually saying in accordance with these images. So it actually was an enjoyable experience as well. So thanks.
Cool. I also think that this is just such an important topic that I want to keep on having, especially with the Learning Lab sites, because when you take topics like this, it really doesn't matter if you're in a library or a museum. The setting doesn't matter, but it's definitely more about the context and kind of the importance and the meat of what we're interested in. And a really important thing that I think we're all thinking about is equity and access. And it's also the topic of this year's or next year's DML. Submissions are due in a couple of weeks, so if anyone's thinking about applying for that. But just wanted to bring that up as something to think about as well, and something that seems like the wider world is also thinking about, which I think is definitely a good thing that equity is being focused on. So great job.
Right, and if there's an opportunity to do this again, it'd be fun to come back again in a couple months and share some more strategies with whoever wants to do this again on the Hangout.
I think that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Great, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.